Committee of the Whole called to order at 7:03. Welcome back, everybody. First on our list is disclosure of any pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none, we'll move on ahead to the approval of the agenda. The motion is, I don't even have this written down because I don't have the paper. The motion is to approve the agenda as written. Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Holmes, thank you. Any questions? All in favor? That passes. Approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Can we have a mover and seconder to approve? Councillor Torrance and Councillor Suter. Any issues or questions? All in favor? And that carries. And we have one consent report tonight from the Heritage Advisory Committee from November 5th. And we have we have no consultant presentations tonight. Are there any questions about the consent report? Seeing none, we'll move on. We're on staff reports, Development Services and Engineering, G1 recommendation report, mill runs 7 and 8. And Director Knight is going to talk to us about that.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just pull up the presentation here. Okay, so this is the presentation for the report regarding the plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment for mill run 7 and 8. This was on the committee of the whole agenda a few months ago, but it was pulled from the agenda at the request of the developer, and they're now prepared to proceed forward with draft approval. So I'm just going to start off with the active subdivision map. It's been updated for 2026. And just to orient everyone, the property that we're talking about tonight is mill run 7 and 8. So that's in the top right-hand corner of the map there. And the remainder of the sites just identify the active subdivision applications that we have ongoing in the municipality. So in terms of background, the lands are located directly north of the existing mill run subdivision. It is a rectangular shaped parcel of land. There was an application, the application was deemed complete in February of 2023. There, as mentioned, there have been some recent modifications to the lotting, which I will review in the presentation. The property is designated residential in our official plan. This property was part of the official plan amendment 22, which expanded the boundaries of the town of Almonte. It is still zoned rural, and that is a historical carryover from that official plan process. And so there's obviously a zoning bylaw amendment to go along with the subdivision to align with the proposed uses in the subdivision. On the screen is a conceptual plan of the subdivision. The area below at the bottom of the diagram that's somewhat faded out is the existing mill run subdivision. This is phase 6. This street here is Sadler Drive. There is an existing stormwater management pond and an existing community park here. The proposed subdivision includes 2 phases, phase 7 and 8. Oops, to the right-hand side is potentially a phase 9 of the subdivision. However, this property is still privately owned, so it is not part of this application. So the subdivision application includes an expansion to the stormwater management pond. It also includes a realignment of the trail that goes around the stormwater management pond. There is a series of single detached dwellings proposed primarily for phase 8. Phase 7 includes townhouses, a mixture of 2-story and bungalow townhomes, as well as single detached dwellings. And there's also an open space block on the north end of the subdivision. This is required because it is blanding turtle habitat, so it is required to be protected. In terms of that's strange. In terms of the phasing, like I mentioned, there's 2 phases proposed for development. The purple line on the screen is the phasing. It's a bit hard to see, but as you can see, the stormwater management pond expansion is part of phase 7, which would be the first phase of the subdivision, and it includes all of the lands here fronting on streets 1 and 2, as well as the properties that front onto Sadler Drive here. The proposal is for 125 units, which is a mixture of 71 singles and 54 townhomes. The density is approximately 17.3 units per gross hectare, which falls within our required range in our official plan. And as part of official plan amendment 32, we introduced a policy where for all subdivisions, at least 1 model home must be offered for sale, which has a purpose-built ARU. And there's a requirement which will be included in the subdivision agreement. And the applicant has agreed to this requirement. In terms of parkland, there is no parkland provided. There will be cash in lieu of parkland. I just wanted to highlight too that the open space block that I noted here for Blandings turtle habitat, it is not considered parkland. So that's an open space block, but it does not contribute to the parkland requirements for the subdivision. In terms of built form, the zoning will implement different types of built forms, which include singles and semis, as I mentioned. We're also including a requirement where there will be a minimum 8-meter building height for some of the townhomes, which would mean that some of the townhomes will be required to be 2 stories, approximately 28 units. And that's just to ensure that we have a range of built forms in the subdivision. So we'll have bungalow towns as well as 2 stories. In terms of local traffic, there was some comments provided by the public, concerns with local traffic. The transportation study indicates that there's no concerns with the capacity of the existing local streets. Just to highlight, there is a temporary street proposed in this section here. So this will be a temporary street and temporary servicing that's proposed until such time that a future phase is developed. So this will contain it's a smaller street because it is temporary, but that will provide full traffic circulation for folks living in the subdivision. In terms of construction traffic, there was also a concern from the public regarding the routes that the construction traffic would take. This is something that we addressed through the subdivision agreement process. They will be required to submit a traffic control plan that will be reviewed by staff, including the Director of Public Roads and Public Works. And so at that time, the most suitable construction route will be identified. As well, there was also a comment from the public regarding Canada Post community mailboxes, the location of them where they currently are now, which is just at the very bottom of the screen here at this intersection. And so staff did communicate with Canada Post. They are willing at looking at a relocation, but staff have decided to discuss that relocation once the subdivision has moved forward with construction, rather than move them prematurely before the subdivision is built. In terms of the open space, I mentioned the Blandings turtle habitat for the open space block. We will be working with the developer on providing some required fencing on that open space block, as well as perhaps a few interpretive panels that will provide information to the public about the importance of the wetland to the north and the Blandings turtle habitat. We do want to highlight that the groundwater table is known to be high in this area, especially in phase 8 for the single detached dwellings. The municipality will be requiring that there be a special conditions or a series of conditions put in the subdivision agreement that will require sump pumps as well as backup power in people's homes, just to ensure that they do have the required infrastructure in their houses to make sure that flooding can be avoided. And as I mentioned, there's a expansion to the stormwater management pond. That concludes my presentation, Chair. We are here at step 7, the committee of the whole. If the draft plan conditions are passed as contained in the report, staff would send them to the county and they'll proceed through the county process for draft approval.
Thanks, Director. I'll ask for questions, but first I'll just read the motion so that everyone's aware of what we're talking about. The recommended motion is that Committee of the Whole recommend that Council approve the draft plan conditions similar in effect to Attachment D and direct staff to send these conditions to Lanark County to be included in the draft approval of the Mill Run 7 and 8 subdivision 09T 23003. Any questions for the Director? Councillor Holmes?
Thank you. Melanie, I have actually 2 questions, and it's related to the high water table. Does the municipality incur any risk with this? That's my first question. And my second question is, I understand that there's a process in place to ensure that the original owners are aware of the need to, maintain the sump pumps and but what about the subsequent owners after that? Is there any kind of process to make sure that, if I'm number 3 buyer, I know about this?
Through you, Chair, in terms of the risk, I would say no. The municipality does their due diligence through the geotechnical and individual lot grading and drainage plans, as well with the requirements in the subdivision agreement, knowing that we've done our due diligence in terms of requiring the sump pumps and especially the backup power as well. So I don't think there's any risk on the municipality's part in terms of that. In terms of the process of future property owners to be notified and understand that they have sump pumps, the subdivision agreement is registered on title and does carry forward on title with every property. So hopefully folks have, when they buy properties, they have a great real estate lawyer who will provide them with a copy of that subdivision agreement that's registered on title. And there would be details in there regarding the requirements for sump pumps.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes, just on the supply and power to the sump pumps. So is everybody going to have to buy a gas generator to run in the house, or how's that going to work?
Through you, Chair, no. It's a requirement that when they're originally installed, they have battery backup power.
Battery backup power. Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Torrance?
Melanie, can you go back about 4 slides to the where we can see, it might have been one more maybe, where you can see the subdivisions in relationship to each other. The first one then. So where we see the Hannon Hills and the Sonnenberg lands, where do we as a municipality think about the road layout and how those roads might dovetail into each other, run into each other? Only because we've created in this subdivision within this particular subdivision, a closed loop, basically. We've allowed for a future expansion on the one side and some expansion, but not to towards where we know there's going to be another subdivision. So where in your department do you think about what that street layout is going to look like in connecting those neighborhoods?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of the road layout connection, one piece that you can kind of see on this aerial map, but one real challenge with this area in particular is this section here, which is commonly referred to as the Menzies Drain. And this is actually quite a substantial watercourse. Mm-hmm. It is one of the features that makes it really challenging on a geographic sort of basis to connect them with roads. So with Hannon Hills subdivision, as you recall, we required the developer to put actually a pedestrian connection here. Likely at some point in the future, there would be a formalized road connection that would be further down the road. In addition to that, so that makes it very challenging. And so because this property is the way that it's situated, and we do have that drain, it's very difficult to connect these two subdivisions together. And not to put all of the blame on the poor little Blandings turtles, but they're a provincially protected species and they're very important. And so when we're dealing with Blandings turtle habitat, that area does need to be protected, quite a bit in terms of from the province. And the habitat is actually quite far. It was sort of cut off by the concept plan, but it actually goes up in here through the wetland, and it actually comes down here as well along the drain. So a couple of challenges with that, but we do look at that. The TMP obviously looks at, sort of that 30,000 foot scale. It does have that collector road contemplated north of this area somewhere. I would say that that's probably the best answer I have right now in terms of how we think through those road connections. But we are cognizant of the fact that we do need to provide as much connectivity as we can. With Hannon Hills, our focus was on more active transportation connection as opposed to vehicular. And then also keeping in mind that these lands here are within the urban boundary and they are contemplated for future development. So there will eventually be a road connection leading out to concession 11A as well. And there is if I can hear, there's also a road stub here that's built into phase 6 that would also connect to these lands as well for future expansion.
Yeah, well, you can see where, if I may, Madam Chair, you can see where the connections are to the potential phase 9 that is not on that original map, that doesn't have anything, whereas you can't see any connections on anything else. So that was my first question. And if I may, my second question is that it has to do with the public comments and your consideration of the traffic. And when we see a statement that the municipality can also consider lowering the speed limit on the roads, which will be part of the construction access, what can I as a councillor read into that? Does that mean you will, you may, like, what does that actually, like you can consider it, that doesn't tell me much as a councillor.
Yeah, great question. I would say that it's something that we'll be reviewing in detailed design in terms of the construction traffic management plan. I would be doing that in consultation with the Director of Roads and Public Works. So I'd speak to them about the speed. Generally speaking, the approach is we usually don't implement a speed reduction unless there is a problem. So we can implement a speed reduction if it's necessary, but that's usually not the approach at first. Usually the approach at first is to have a well thought out construction traffic plan, and then mitigate any impacts that may be presented as construction occurs.
A final question then, that in the delivery of this report, I can see that you're considering all of that, then that becomes an internal problem for your two departments to solve. That doesn't come back to council.
That would be correct, Chair. It wouldn't come back to council unless it is something that will be when the draft plan, when the applicant is ready for registration of the subdivision agreement. That does come back to council before the mayor and clerk enter into the subdivision agreement on behalf of the municipality. So that is something that we can flag and report back to council as part of that reporting.
I would like that flagged, please. Thank you.
Just give the director a second there. Okay, Councillor Ferguson.
What's the minimum number of residents for cash in lieu parkland? You mentioned there's no parkland, there's cash in lieu rather.
Through you, Chair. So the cash in lieu of parkland bylaw has a flat rate of 5% of the value of the land. And so that's what we take if there's no parkland provided. The Community Services Master Plan actually did an analysis of our parkland and does have a threshold ratio of a certain amount of parkland to a certain population. And off the top of my head, I can't tell you what it is right now, but I can tell you that right now we exceed it, and we will be planning on doing that in maintaining that in subsequent years. In addition to that, the community park that's part of Mill Run Phase 6, that is slightly larger than what was originally required as well. So there is a little bit of extra parkland on the site.
Counselor Suter?
Just to come back to the traffic plan for a moment, I can see that you have thought out connections to future subdivisions very clearly. But it's also pretty clear that just about the only way in for construction traffic is Sadler. And I gather that is where some comments, pressure came to consider speed lowering. Once in, I noticed Phase 7 has that temporary road, which almost looks like half a road. Would that then be able to stockpile supplies and stuff within it to minimize traffic? I mean, I know every time you need a truckload of stuff, you need a truckload of stuff. And it has to come in somehow at least once. But I was just thinking of trying to facilitate it. The other question I had was the drain, the municipal drain, that's the extension from Honeybourne. It is shown in green, which shows that's open space. And is it very much your intention to keep that as open space because of considerations for turtle migration and wildlife in general, et cetera?
Yes. So to answer your first question about construction staging, typically a developer would do some sort of construction staging on site. That's quite normal. I think I would put it in their hands to identify areas where they can store materials and things like that, keeping in mind they obviously have to keep away from the regulated areas of the turtle habitat. So I know that we'll be working closely with the developer to, make sure that the construction traffic plan is well thought out, and they've thought about sort of mitigating the impacts as much as possible to the existing residents, for sure. And thank you for raising the question about the open space area behind the lots here that run parallel to the drain. So this is actually a block on the plan that will be conveyed to the municipality, sort of for two folds. One because it is protected habitat, and the easiest way for the municipality to ensure that remains in perpetuity is that if we own it, as opposed to being owned privately by individual property owners. In addition to that, it does provide us a little bit more width. If we do have to do maintenance on the drain, it allows the staff, more room to be able to access the drain and do whatever maintenance they need to do.
One final question. It's connected to the turtle habitat. And I confess I knew nothing about Blandings turtles until last week, and discovered that, yes, in fact, they're pretty little box turtles with yellow throats. But they also will travel many kilometers. And is that little area part of what will become a much larger reserved area that's up in the Sonnenberg lands? Because it doesn't have a straight cut. Turtles don't know about those fences. And that's another thing. Do they really have to be 1.5 meters high? The fencing?
Through you, Chair, yes, the turtle fencing does have to be 1.5 meters high as per provincial regulation. So there is a requirement for specific turtle fencing. In terms of the area of the turtle fencing, you can almost see it even just on the aerial mapping, that dark area. So this whole area here, and if I had the EIS on me, I'd have a map that shows exactly the turtle habitat. is included here, and it does sort of swing around and come down here along the drain. And so the Sonnenberg lands don't have an application in yet, so we don't have an EIS on this property. But the EIS submitted with this application in the future would detail the exact Blanding's turtle habitat based on the environmental impact statement that's completed. So I don't have that answer now, but yes, I think it's safe to assume that there would likely be some habitat identified there, as well as there was some habitat identified on the Hannon Hills subdivision as well.
Okay, about 30 years ago, my husband and I lived in the south of England, and there was a way to help wildlife through signage. And as we were driving down little back roads, you would suddenly turn a corner and come up against a sign that said, "Help a toad across the road. Slow down, please." Or, "Turtle crossing. Adjust your speed." Perhaps we could put a few of those in, just to see if anybody remembers Monty Python.
And back to Councillor Ferguson.
Just one quick question. In the ideal world, what's the build out time for this subdivision?
In an ideal world, I would say that, phase 7 is larger than phase 8. I would say that if the foot was on the gas pedal by the developers in terms of getting building permits as quick as possible, heading to the county for an early draft approval and then working through detailed design, there could be some, preliminary construction done perhaps at the end of this year, and perhaps, depending on the complexity of the requirements for the infrastructure, early next year, springtime for building permits, but that would be pretty aggressive timeline.
Good. Yep, thank you.
Any other questions? I have something, Melanie, if I may. 17.3 units per hectare. When our ratio is 15 to 35, I know we're within it, but it's really low. At what point is this the time to address that? Or is it too late, or is it not yet?
Through you, Chair, it's a bit late, to be honest, to be addressing the density. I would say that keeping in mind that we have that range, but every application that has come forward has always been somewhere else in that range. So we've had another application that was very close to a 15 unit mark. We've had 2 others that were at the high end of the 35, like closer to the 35. So I think on a balance scale, when you look across all of the subdivisions that we're looking at, I think it's going to, your density is probably going to even out between all of them. I do think that the other piece that we have to be concerned about right now is, of course, our capacity allocation, for the sewage treatment plant. And so, that is something that we really do have to keep track of and be firm on in terms of the unit count and everything, and moving slowly towards that. So that's a piece of it too. But I would say overall, when you look at all of the different subdivisions, there's definitely a range of densities. Like, for example, Weaver's Way was like above 30, if I recall, as well as Hannon Hills. So there is some balancing out between different developments, and it does offer a bit of a different scale of development, different built forms for folks who are looking for a home. So,
Okay, so although this one is on the lower end, it balances out in what we think is coming forward. Councillor Suter?
If I could add just a comment, it was last year that we agreed to move from a net density to a gross density figure. And if you look at this particular map, yes, you've got a density of 17.3, but you've got very significant area within this that is not being developed and does count towards that density. To Director Knight, do you know what the actual area of green space is in that subdivision?
Through you, Chair, I do know, but not off the top of my head.
Okay.
Is it on the screen? Okay, there you go.
2,200 meters squared. Thank you. Any other questions? Sorry, Mayor Lowry?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I wasn't going to make any comments, but then when you raise the density issue and being so close to the bottom of the scale, I wonder, Director Knight, if you can provide any comments. I'm a little disappointed to be seeing the density going, in my view, backwards. And to see, you know, an increase in the 1 and 2 story towns. We have a lot of those. Particularly in the subdivision already. What we did see move really, really quickly, granted it is at a different subdivision, but is the back-to-back towns, which is really a model of housing that, or housing type that is an entry level. A bungalow town isn't really a entry level purchasing property for a young family or someone who's starting out. And perhaps it's a duplication of the answer that you gave to my colleague about, you know, what can we do about that at this stage? I'm disappointed to see us moving backwards with what's being proposed by the developer here. And I'm disappointed to see further 1 and 2 story townhomes, which is quite prevalent in in previous phases of this development. So I don't know if you can offer some comments here. Are there things that we could do to encourage different housing types? Is there anything you can share in terms of the conversations that have maybe happened with the applicant?
Yes, through you, Chair. I think that the conversations about different housing types, I think really have to happen very early on in the process. I think that in conversations with the applicant, there has been a move because of recent sales that they have in other municipalities, where they're foreseeing that some of the built forms that they had originally had proposed, you know, the change down to the bungalow towns was something that they desired. We certainly don't have many tools in our toolbox to require applicants to provide certain types of built forms other than with density, and, you know, having that 60-40 split range between low density and medium density. I think it is something that we'll have further conversations with applicants as we move forward. We do have quite a bit of land still left in Almonte where we don't have any subdivision applications yet. But certainly we can work towards that with applicants and like I said, early on in the process. But we don't have a lot of tools in our toolbox. We have some, definitely have some, and we can work on those. But it's a bit tough when we have a good density range right now in the official plan policies. But note taken, and yes, definitely we'll have those conversations earlier on.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think if I could ask a question of clarity, when you're saying earlier in the process, you're meaning at what point?
Through you, Chair, I would suggest like earlier in the process, as in at the circulation stage, you know, formal application stage, circulation stage. We can even have those conversations at a pre-consult stage with an applicant. But in my experience, when we get down to draft approval, this is sort of the end of it. I would say, generally speaking, though, in my experience, as an applicant moves forward through draft approval and then setting aside maybe our wastewater treatment plant capacity, there are opportunities for an applicant to what we call redlining a draft plan, you know, before they register that phase. In my experience, that when those come forward, it's usually not to decrease density. It's almost always to increase the density of a subdivision. That is a possibility, obviously, not something that I can predict with this application or any others, but that's my experience.
Sure, no, I appreciate that. If I could just end with a comment, I feel like we are blessed with all kinds of bungalows in this community, and we don't need more of them. What we really need is entry-level homes that that folks starting out can purchase, and that tends not to be a bungalow. So I'm really quite disappointed to see this in here, but I do appreciate what you're saying in terms of where we are in the process and where we have the most ability to try to influence what these subdivisions look like. But nonetheless, disappointing to see more bungalows in this plan.
Okay, should we go to the motion? We've read it once. You all have it in your packages. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Suter. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you, Director. And we're on to Protective Services, Chief Williams. This is the update to the traffic and parking bylaw 0227. Mike, do you have a presentation? Okay.
Evening, Happy New Year. Just want to provide, there's an update of. Sure.
Is your radio on?
No.
Yeah, there's some sort of feedback in the system. I don't know what it is.
Okay, is that better? Okay. We're just looking for an update on our traffic and parking bylaw. There's going to be 4 recommendations that I'm putting forward. The first is going to be reducing the distance of the edge of the driveway to allow parking from 1.5 meters to 0.5 meters. The other change will be changing it from a 3-hour on-street parking to allow up to a 24-hour on-street parking. The update newly added parking spots. The Director of Roads, they added a few no parking spots, so we're just updating the bylaw for those, and the increase of the set fine amounts. So reduce the driveway clearance for passenger vehicles. Reducing the clearance, lowering minimal parking from driveways for passenger vehicles from 1.5 to 0.5 meters increases the availability curbside parking. This does not include commercial vehicles. Commercial vehicles would still have to maintain a 1.5 meter clearance, just to preserve visibility and turning space for larger vehicles in these subdivisions. The parking capacity increase. The reduced clearance is expected to increase on-street parking spaces in certain areas by 26%, easing parking shortages in some of our neighborhoods. The planning department did just a rough assessment of a couple of streets, and they determined that it would increase in some of these areas by 26% for on-street parking. For expanding the street parking, increased parking limits to 24 hours, supports residents with limited driveways, and accommodates daytime visitor effectively. So what this does is, right now our bylaw states you're only allowed to park on a street anywhere in our municipality, in any subdivision, any street, for 3 hours between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. So what we are finding, that people are having daytime visitors or people that are at residence, they are getting tickets and or having to move their vehicles if they're there longer than 3 hours during the daytime hours. So by extending it to a 24-hour period, that they are able to have visitors there all day without causing any disturbance to visitors. Longer parking duration reduces frequent monitoring, allowing enforcement to focus on genuine violations, saving municipal resources, making public parking more accessible to multifamily homes, and limited off-street parking areas. Updated to the no parking zones, it's expanding some of the parking zones to help reduce traffic congestion, improves maneuverability, and narrowing our busy streets, ensuring that there's an adequate access for all of the fire trucks and ambulances so they can access the roads, enhance public safety, clear signage enforcement, mitigate risks from obstructed sight lines and limited turning space. So there's only 4 streets that they've added no parking, and they are on Rosamond, Mary, and Little Bridge. There's just 2 different areas on Rosamond. So those are the new updated no parking spaces. The increased set fines, increasing the fines, currently it's $20 for a parking fine. We're looking to increase it to $30. This aligns with inflation and comparable to other municipalities and helps maintain a deterrence. Higher fines strengthen enforcement credibility and encourage better compliance with parking regulations, and also increased fines support administrative costs and reduce the fiscal burden on taxpayers. So these are just the options that I've put forward. Council approves all the recommendations or stay status quo or partial implementation. I recommend we move forward with option 1 and accept the recommended changes.
Thank you very much. We'll have some discussion before we decide which motion we're going to do. First, Chief, I wanted to say, unfortunately, the holiday season again has been difficult for our firefighters. So our thoughts are with all of you guys as you keeping us safe. Thank you. Any questions for Chief Williams? Yep.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mike, for the presentation. Does this do anything to address the concerns at 151 Ottawa?
152 Ottawa, no, it does not at this moment.
Councillor Holmes?
Thank you. Mike, I'm wondering about the 24-hour parking. What about the winter snow removal?
Winter, when it comes to winter parking, there is no parking. That takes precedence over any of the parking. So when winter parking is in effect, there is no parking after the hours of, I think it's 1 a.m. till 7 a.m. on any streets.
The other question I have is parking Market Square lot more than 4 hours. So you're saying that limiting Market Square parking to 4 hours? This is on page 59, number 28.
Oh.
28.
Yeah, because it's, I think it's set to 4 hours currently now. Yeah, it's currently set at 4 hours now. So that set fine increase would
Yeah.
increase.
Okay, so it is for, I guess one of my problems is going back to previous council, there was a lot of complaints about no parking on the main street. And there was a survey done at that time, and what we discovered was the reason there was no parking is because the people who worked on Main Street, on that, on the main street, were parking in front of the stores and whatnot, so there was no parking. So, and at the time, I thought the idea was that they would park, in Market Square. But if it's only 4 hours, they're going to get fined. So I'm just, it's just not quite right. Otherwise, people who work for 8 hours are going to park in front of those stores, and there's not going to be parking for the customers.
Yeah, Mill Street parking is a 2-hour limit on Mill Street. They still wanted to keep the 4-hour in the parking lots to try to get some rotation going, so it's not being filled up all day by staff. So they're
So, but
trying to
the
allow it.
staff generally work 8 hours, I think. So where do they park? I
Yeah.
saw, that's just my question.
I think Mayor Lowry has some input.
Thank you.
I might just jump in and not to step on your toes, Chief. The 4-hour parking is what's in place now in Market Square. So I think what we've always been trying to encourage is the shopkeepers or their staff is to park further out from that. The 4 hours, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that's been in place for quite some time in Market Square so that there's a place for the shoppers to be able to be there a little longer. Because on the main street, you can be there for 2 hours. If you're wanting to, have lunch and do some shopping, you park in the market. But what has been a problem there too is if it's not monitored and if the fee isn't enough of a deterrent, there are folks who are parking there longer than what's sort of intended. And perhaps there needs to be a bit of an education campaign along with this as well, because the intention is if you're there all day, park on one of the streets that are a little bit farther from the downtown. And not to step on your toes there, Chief, but just if that kind of helps what the thought process is with where you can park shorter term and where you can park a little longer. And if you're there all day, please go a little farther out. Yeah.
Councillor Torrance?
I feel like that there's a little bit missing because we don't know where the 2-hour parking is. Because it's like this update looks like it's going to be 24 hours in every street in Mississippi Mills. And so where are the 2-hour parking spots? Because we don't know those, where are those so that's one question, because I know there are in Pakenham on the main street, there are some 2-hour parking spots in front of the bank, etc. And I know on Mill Street is 2 hours right now. So is that going to stay status quo? Like so it's hard to figure that out from this report. And the second, the no parking that's included, except like these are currently already in existence. So I don't know is this an update or what is being updated here?
These no parking spots, I'm not sure if it was actually ever part of the bylaw. It wasn't in our bylaw, so it's an update. Yes, they've been on Rosamond and Mary and Little Bridge. They've added no parking spots, but the bylaw was never updated to allow that. And can I make a comment on the first question part? In my report, no, it does not state what streets are in the 2-hour, but in our overall bylaw, it does still states the streets. There's Bridge Street, it's 2 hours. Different parts of Bridge Street's 2 hours. Mill Street's 2 hours. Union Street South is 30 minutes. So in our overall parking bylaw, those still remain in effect.
And if I may, the reducing the distance from the edge of the driveway from 1.5 to 0.5, do you think that will happen on Mill Street as well?
On Mill Street, no, because they're designated parking spaces, already mapped out parking spaces.
Thank you.
Councillor Ferguson and then Councillor Holmes.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, much like two questions, I have a little problem with the 24-hour parking, trying to define it. It seems there's an issue. And I don't know, 24 hours, if it's going to be 24 hours, how are we going to redefine that? That's one concern I have. The second one I have, and it's a bit of a misdemeanor, but on page 58, number 11, park within 15 meters of level railroad crossings. Well, is that with or without trains? I know, that's what I'm saying. And that's probably one that's a misdemeanor that could, yeah. Right, yes, yeah. Thank you.
Counselor Holmes?
Just a question, with all these changes that's going on, how is it going to affect parking in front of Baker Bob's?
With parking in front of Baker Bob's, there is no parking allowed in front of Baker Bob's. So this changes isn't going to affect parking at Baker Bob's because there is no parking in front of Baker Bob's.
But if we take away, aren't we taking away more parking spots on Little Bridge? Am I reading that wrong?
Was, correct me
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, but it was a continued no parking on Little Bridge?
Yes, according to the report, there's no parking on Little Bridge between 73 Little Bridge and 77 Little Bridge, which is in front of Baker Bob's stretch. So we've updated the bylaw to account for the no parking signs that have been in place and that has been brought forward.
And there was a trial of having parking down further. Where are we with that? Do you know?
I know there is parking spots on Little Bridge. Once they made it a one-way on the other side of the railway path. And I think on both sides of the rail, there's parking. So people are using it. I know that the people are still parking in front of Baker Bob's. I'm not sure if there's been any enforcement of that, but I know people are still doing it. But they are encouraged to use the parking spots that are there.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor Lauer?
I don't know if there's still a lot of discussion to be had here, but I think I'd like to see this referred back to staff for really two specific reasons. I generally appreciate the direction you're taking here, Chief. And I think it does make sense to be allowing, I'm not sure if it's 24, maybe it is up to 24, but what I'm thinking about is sort of the unintended consequences here. And I'm thinking specifically downtown, where there can be a fair amount of congestion and it can be tricky to find parking. Although what Councillor Holmes said is very true. Like a lot of the time it was, there wasn't a spot right in front of the store I wanted to go to. Doesn't necessarily mean there's not parking. But what I'm wondering is if we could have this come back with a map showing the different areas where are 2 hour, the different areas where there is none, because I think there's a little bit of confusion around the table for us remembering what's already in place and whatnot. But the second thing I'm thinking about is whether there needs to be the 2 hour parking, the 24-hour parking, and then something in the middle. So like what we have in the market, the 4-hour parking, I'm wondering if there is a zone close to the downtown that's also 4-hour parking. So we can make it a little clearer to the folks who are working downtown. Here's where we'd like for you to park. And here's where we would like for visitors or people who are trying to pick up their mail or run errands. It's a little clearer where we can all, use the streets the best way. So I won't put the referral forward if there's still discussion, but I think that's what I would like to see is just a little bit more information in the package, including mapping and where all the 2-hour parking areas are, in consideration of I'm calling it a zone. It might be something different for some of those areas where there can be congestion and it can be a little bit busier. I'll hold the referral though until.
Okay, thanks. We've got a few more hands up now. So Councillor Holmes and then Suter and then Torrance.
So just on the same vein, if it's going back to council, could we also have in the picture here, like if you're raising the cost, could you put in the cost now and for fines and the cost that you want it to come forward to? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I sent out, I know I sent out set fines that we currently have right now. I sent out the set fines that we currently have right now, which is a $20 fine for just about most of the stuff. Then it would be going up to a $30 fine.
Okay.
But yeah, so I can provide that.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Suter?
Well, following the request to refer, I would appreciate if the entire Heritage District were looked at a little more closely, because there are areas that are designated part of that and have now been designated as having special zoning that's changed recently, because Queen Street is a busy traffic street. It's a highway. And it also is a commercial area. Bridge Street is the continuation of that highway and is also a commercial street. It might be worthwhile considering putting in actual parking spots in those areas and considering a limit that may be longer than 2 hours, but a limit that would accommodate the commercial uses, such as the restaurant, and not allow people to sit there for 24 hours. I think the whole idea of the 24 hours was for residential neighborhoods where people have complained loudly and bitterly about ticketing happening to tradesmen who are working in their homes or whatever. Also, I would like to reinforce a request for clarity on the actual raises in the parking fines, because 20 to 30 is 50% raise. And the previous set fine limit was 30 and is now going to 50, which represents a 67% rise all at once. It's a bit much, I think.
Thank you, Counselor Suter. I think if I may, Counselor Torrance, if it's quick and it's something, I think we're going to end up referring this. So if you want something quickly just to add, that's great. If not, I would recommend everybody send an email to the chief so he has the information for next round.
I would like you to consider, Chief, the 1.5 to 0.5 meters, the change of that, only because 0.5 meters isn't very long, and living on Mary Street, if I had somebody at 0.5 on one side of the driveway and the other side of the driveway, because it's a very busy road because of the museum, I don't know that that I would always be able to get out, because it's not wide enough to back out properly without cutting that corner. So just to have a little bit more reflection about that. And when you say 24 hours, which I'm in favor of, but to have a maximum over a 7-day period, so that we don't see vehicles parked on the road for 9 or 10 months of the year. This, and which could happen this way. So.
Okay. Mayor Lowry, did you want to make the motion to Councillor Holmes?
Just another thought. This is the town, this is more than Almont. This is Pakenham and Appleton. And yeah, we must be very cautious about the business of cars, because I know it's been settled now, but there was an issue in Appleton of someone parking cars 24/7 in front of other people's houses, and it caused a lot of problem. So we really need to be cautious about that.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor Lowry, would you like to make the motion to refer?
Sure. And I when I'm hearing with the conversation too, I think we're going in the right direction. It's just, those finer details and the unintended consequences of, a neighbor parking in front of a neighbor for 24 hours every other day or something. I'm not sure. But I think if we can refer this back, get a little bit more information based on the conversation that's happened. So a map, the fees was something else I had heard, including the 2-hour areas that are in existence now, and perhaps consideration of extension of those 2-hour periods to some of the heritage areas or commercial areas, in consideration of perhaps another zone around some of those more complex and busy parts of town. I don't know if the clerks captured all of that I just said. Is
that
that
good?
okay? All right,
Okay.
so I would refer it back to gather
Okay.
some of those points that we've discussed.
Is there a seconder for the referral? Counselor Ferguson? Any discussion on the referral? All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, absolutely.
If anyone has any other questions, or if you could just send me an email and we can just make sure we're capturing all the information you guys require. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we are on.
Parking from your house.
We're at G3 Public Art Policy Update, and Tiffany is here with us to discuss that. No problem. Take your time.
So I think this will be relatively quick because this is just an update. I did present the policy and package in September. And then I made some, based on feedback, some edits and just waited till after the public realm went through. Specifically, just a reminder, this is just the value of public art, and that this was a recommendation of the Community Services Master Plan. And the policy basically was created to provide a framework for staff to evaluate proposals, donations, installation standards, and maintenance required. It's really, maintenance is key to this policy, but to encourage, not discourage, by making it a clear process to follow. This policy, one of the things that did come up at the last time was the difference between the recently adopted municipal donation and sponsorship policy and art that might be in the walls in the municipal office or smaller sculptures. And so that was something that we clarified with this version. So I just want to point out, so this is about permanent public art installations. Include to parks, trails, streetscapes, and buildings. It's pretty much exterior, but if it was like a mural on the side of a building, largely due to maintenance considerations, interior art, so a painting, small sculptures would be considered under the municipal donation and sponsorship policy. One of the other major changes is that this is a staff advisory. It's not an advisory committee, it's a staff working group. It would only be ad hoc and it would only be used to advise staff and wouldn't be directly working or reporting to council. It would be an opportunity to have the community feedback on artistic merit, site suitability, community relevance, and decommissioning decisions, but they would be used as a group for staff to consult, and then staff would prepare presentations and talk and report to council, and it would be just one of the considerations. When a proposal was received, municipal staff would review for compliance with the policy. They would review for feasibility, accessibility, safety, maintenance. They would engage at that time a public art group to provide expert and community input, and then prepare a report to council to incorporate the feedback. But staff would always, one of the other things that was a bit vague in the policy that got firmed up was that a requirement would always be that the development services, accessibility advisory committee, and heritage advisory committees and as well as Indigenous groups would be consulted again before the presentations brought forward to council. There's no financial implications of this adopting this policy because it's really a framework for future. There's nothing, there's no cost, and the working group being ad hoc, doesn't require any kind of a budget because they would only be consulted if something came forward. If a proposal came forward, that would be dealt with on its own once it came to council if there was any financial considerations, but there's nothing for this particular report or recommendation. And that's everything. So if there are questions.
Thank you. Counselor Suter?
Tiffany, where's that door?
Oh, that door's in Blakeney. That was
Cool.
Yeah, it was installed as part of our Canada 150 public art contest, actually. We did 3 pieces of art and that was one of them.
Any other questions? Yep, Deputy Mayor.
Just on the public working group. I thought we were getting away from them.
Yeah. When this came forward before, it was an advisory committee, and so it's been redone to be, it's only it's the public, because it's public art, it's important to have public context and feedback. So it would just be for staff, to advise staff. So it would not be an advisory committee of council.
Anything else? Okay, so the recommended motion is that the Committee of the Whole recommends council approve the Mississippi Mills Public Art Policy, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that council working group, MMP, AWG, and terms of reference. I think that should be and the Committee of the Whole recommends the acceptance or adoption of the council working group. Yeah, okay. All right. No problem. Mover and seconder. Anybody? Counselor Suter? Second? Counselor Holmes. Thank you. All in favor? Can we do that again? All in favor?
We have discussion.
Sure, I'm sorry. Further discussion?
Sorry, it's just, I think that the wording is, we recommend that council working group in terms of references, we've just been told it's not a council working group.
Approves missing after the word.
Okay, the staff advisory working group, like, it's just, I think that goes a long way just to clarify that little piece.
Yeah. Okay, so it should read, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that council approve the staff working group and its terms of reference. Is that okay? Any other questions on that? All right, all in favor? And that passes. Thank you. Thanks, Tiffany. And we're on to G4, Council Remuneration 2026 to 2030. And we have our clerk and deputy CIO, Jean Harfield.
Hello, thank you for having me. So I'm just going to quickly go over the council remuneration proposed changes. As per the policy, we bring this back during the last year of the term of council to come in effect for the next term of council. So this wouldn't come, any approved changes tonight wouldn't come into effect until the next term of council, which is November 15th, 2026. So as part of the process, we looked at the same 8 municipalities that the municipality uses when we're conducting salary reviews for staff. So those 8 municipalities are listed on the table as you see it. They're comparators based on population and based on proximity, as well as the rural and urban split. So you'll see, based on the median and the average salaries, that both the mayor and deputy mayor positions fall below the 50th percentile of our comparators. Based on best practice and to mirror what how we compare staff salaries and the recommended salaries for staff. We try to keep our salaries competitive and within the 90th to 95th percentiles. So we are falling below in all three, but particularly for the mayor and deputy mayor positions. I will note that these salaries are based on current salaries for all these comparator municipalities, and most likely these municipalities will be reviewing their salaries as well. So just to keep that in mind. So another piece of research that staff did was to look into the option for a full-time mayor. This came from direction of council for staff to look into this. So we did a lot of digging. I reached out to multiple municipalities, to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, as well as posting on clerks forums to see what other municipalities are doing. I did hear back from an actual municipal law expert, and he indicated that he really opposed creating a job description or creating hours of operation or expectations of hours worked for the head of council position because it is a legislative position. And he essentially said, once you're a member of council, it's a 24/7 job, and you can't dictate as a municipality what the hours of any member of council works because it's really you're elected by the members of the municipality of eligible electors, not hired. So there's no, he thought it would set a dangerous precedence. However, it is within the authority of council to set the remuneration to reflect the additional responsibilities of the head of council. So taking that in mind, we were trying to figure out how we would go about doing that because there was, in all honesty, no one came back and told me that they had a full-time mayor. They all just compensated at widely different ranges. So to have a starting point here, we looked at some municipalities that had greater than 20,000 population. And we really picked these municipalities based on available data and who got back to us. So there wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason for this other than picking municipalities within this range and who actually responded to my emails after pestering them for a number of weeks. So you'll see these are the comparative salaries in this table here. And then again, if we did the same calculations to determine the median and average and the percentiles, the salary or the remuneration for the head of council falls well below those two, which is expected because these are larger municipalities. I did calculate the median, average, and all those percentiles, not including Mississippi Mills rates. So these are just the rates of the other municipalities here. And so based on that, the recommendation from staff here is to bring the deputy mayor and should say councilors, not members of council there, sorry, to the 90th percentile. So those would be the rates for 2025. And then to bring the mayor into the 90th percentile of the additional, of the larger comparators there. There are other options within my staff report as well to bring it to a lower, to not bring it to the 90th. We could bring it to a different level. We could also do nothing and keep it at the current levels. I will note that we're not proposing to amend any of the wording in the remuneration bylaw. They will still have the annual increases, which are tied to the same annual increases that staff get. So this won't be the same salary or remuneration year over year. They will increase based on the same increases that staff receive. So I don't know if you want me to stop here or if you want me to keep going.
Does anybody have any questions at this point? No, I think you can keep going.
Okay, so the second piece of research we looked into is professional development and council training. So right now, the way the bylaw is written, it's just that the operational budget for members of council are reviewed annually during the budget deliberations. Traditionally, it works out to roughly about $3,000 per member of council. Recent changes to our remuneration bylaw have tied a lot of our per diems, for example, and travel allowances to Lanark County's remuneration bylaw. This is pretty standard practice. I've noticed from other lower tier municipalities in Lanark County. A lot of them are tying their rates, for example, for mileage or for travel or for per diems to what Lanark County does. So under that, I included here what Lanark County provides for professional development. So they have an annual approved amount for $9,000 per county councillor. And this includes any professional development events such as conferences or any other training. The warden has an unlimited budget. So what we're recommending for members of council here is to mirror for members of council, for councillors, what Lanark County does, and then allow the mayor and deputy mayor $3,000, but they are encouraged to utilize the professional development as identified in the County of Lanark's council remuneration bylaw first. That's typically the practice that our head of council and our deputy head of council do anyways, but this formalizes that. It's not a shall, it's just a request if they go through the Lanark County first, and if they exceed their 9,000 there, then they have 3,000 at Mississippi Bills. So that's our recommendation, but again, all up to debate by members here. And that's the recommendation.
Thank you very much. We'll start with Councillor Suter.
In the past to the present, have council members had a budget? Is that $3,000 were allotted to council members for PD?
So there has been the previous, I guess you could say, council remuneration bylaw had an allotment per member, and it was $3,000, give or take. Right now, it's a lump sum in our annual operating budget. You'll see under the council, it says professional training and development or professional development, and it has a total amount. That's how we run it or track it today. There is not, say, that Councillor 1 gets 3,000, Councillor 2 gets 3,000. It's just a pool of money that we all use, that is used annually. In my staff report, I included what was utilized in 2024 and 2025. So both were, in 2024, it was slightly higher at 19,000. In 2025, it was 18,000. And that was all members of council. And then if you average that out with the, it's the 5 members, the 5 councillors, not including the mayor and deputy mayor, if you average that out, because the head of council and our deputy head were typically using Lanark County. It roughly worked to either around $3,600 to $3,800 per member of council that was being used at those 2 years.
Follow up?
Yes. So the follow-up is by putting it in as a lump sum amount that includes everybody, and it includes everything from conferences to any specific training under AMO, et cetera, to mileage.
That does not include mileage.
Okay.
Mileage and travel are separate and per diems are separate.
They are separate.
Correct.
Okay. And did you put any information about that in this report?
No, it would still remain separate. The per diems have a separate section of the remuneration bylaw, and mileage is set by the municipality using the CRA rates. Yeah.
Okay. The advantage of doing it the way we're doing it now is that it doesn't cap any one person. So if one person were undersubscribing or underusing an allowance, and another one wanted to go to more conferences and training, then that would allow them more, correct?
Technically, yes, we do. I think there is sort of an understanding about members around this table that they will utilize their professional development within a range. So there is, I think, a bit of a unspoken maybe rule that you all follow here, but yes, it allows some wiggle room for members to use more or some to use less.
Okay. I noticed when we were just looking at the mayor's remuneration. And I recognize very much how valuable our mayor is, and I know that we're not talking about that. We have to talk about it in terms of the future, because it could be anyone. But I agree that the remuneration for the mayor should be significantly raised because of the addition of strong mayor's responsibilities, added administrative duties that come with that, and the challenges of trying to meet a growing community within the current economic climate. So just there, I would say yes. I will not at this time commit to an amount. Thanks.
Councillor Torrance and then Councillor Ferguson.
Well, I am very much in favor of a full-time mayor position, although I understand why we are not calling it a full-time mayor position. And I think it has to do with what we as council members want our mayor to do in the course of their term, and on a where we want them to focus their attention. And so aside from the duties assigned by the statutory duties, I guess, the head of council, the head of the corporation, all that kind of stuff, how do we, I completely understand why we wouldn't write a job description, but how do we, like the next person could just, if Krista wasn't running, but like another person could say, well, yeah, I'm going to be it, but I'm going to have office hours 1 day a week, and they're not as effective as a mayor as what we would like. So by saying that we want a full-time mayor, we're putting a little expectation of what we think that our mayor should be doing. All that to say, I understand why you're saying we can't do it, Jean. Is there anything you can think of that the expectations for a mayor, is it up to the public to decide when they're electing a mayor, what they want their mayor to do? Is that part of the election process? Like when you put a professional salary for which this is not a professional salary yet, but when you put out a professional salary for the mayor of Ottawa or the mayor of Kitchener, like those people are expecting it's a full-time position that they're taking on, and so what do they say, this at 60,000, it's still not a professional position. It's still, within an operating realm, so that's question number one, is like, what could we say to be able to think that what we expect of our mayor? The second thing is, if we're considering tying the professional development, our per diems, why don't we also tie our salary to county council? Like that would be another option. And they don't have a deputy warden, so we would have to figure that one out. But we could in turn tie it, although I think we work harder as councillors here than they do at Lanark County. But maybe we should be looking to tie the salaries to Lanark County as well. It might just make it easier for our council and future councils if we were to do that.
Did you want to respond?
Sure. So in speaking to other municipalities, there really isn't much on a staff level that you can do for expectations of hours worked of the head of council. It's an elected position. Technically, the mayor of the city of Ottawa or the mayor of Toronto could dial it in and just attend council meetings. I mean, it's likely to not get elected. But there's not a lot we can do from what I've learned. We can put like, I I could say you could try to put it in your code of conduct, but the province is coming out with a revised code of conduct that will be universal provincial wide. So at that stage, at this point, I wouldn't even recommend that. They are elected positions. It's always the members around the table. If you see poor performance of another member, it's always something you can make public, and then it's up to the public to really then vote or put integrity commissioner complaints out there or whichever. But at the staff level, there's not really much we can do if a member of council or your head or your deputy head isn't putting in the hours or the expected effort.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ferguson?
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. Well, I took a little different approach to it. First of all, there was a question about, I think, the small mayor's responsibilities, i.e. the strong mayor's power. Well, that doesn't build houses. That's the one comment, first of all. But what I did under table 1, I took Mississippi Mills, North Grenville, and Loyalist, which are our comparators for all intents and purposes, if you look at population and everything else. Then I went and looked at the salaries specifically to that, and I averaged them out. And it came out to 44,685, 28,393 for the deputy mayor, and 23,322 for the individuals. I then jumped to table numbers 3, and I went to the 95th percentile, which then brought it up to 49,964 for the mayor, which is a 25% increase. It brought it up to 30,508, which is 11% increase for the deputy mayor. And it brought it up to 24,612 for councillors, which is 15%. And that's what I thought was a fair salary increase for everyone. It addressed, I think, the fact that it's within our comparators. It addresses also the fact that there will be, and as stated, indexing every year, following along with that. And that's where I would set it at. And I totally disagree with the $9,000 from the county. I think that is absolutely ludicrous. $9,000, because that does not, as explained, does not include mileage and does not include travel. I think that is totally overblown at $9,000. And that's what I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Did you want to respond at all to that?
So yes, on the training part, the other option that I included in my report is just to tie the annual increase, like we do the salaries, to what council gets. So in 2026, the training and operating budget for staff increased by 2.5%. So that, and also it also increased by, I think, 3 and a bit percent for councillors to adjust for the new term of council. So that's also one of the options in for council training. That's option 2 in the staff report. And then to go back to Councillor Torrance, if we wanted to tie the salaries to Lanark County, the current remuneration for the warden in Lanark County is $59,441.30. And county councillors receive $24,767.36. But again, the Lanark County remuneration will be reviewed because those were the 2023 salary rates. So they will be reviewed again for the new term of council, I would imagine.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes, did you have something?
Well, I kind of like Denny's, Councillor Ferguson's numbers, and they kind of fall into line with what I was thinking about. But my other question is, it seems like everybody is going to review, but are we on the sort of the forefront doing it ahead of other people?
We are all doing it at the exact same time.
Are we?
Yeah. This is the problem we run into every time. Typically, I'm the first one out and I collect all the data and then I share it with all the other clerks in Leonard County and they then look at my report and then they draft their reports, if I'm being completely honest.
That's why you're so good at your job.
And so we are at but typically, yes, everybody is reviewing their salaries at the same time. And this is why we find our salaries low year after year, is because we're basing our salaries on the rates of the current term of council, and then they all review their rates. So it's just the timing of it. We're all doing it at the exact same time.
I'm gonna, okay, Councillor Suter, excused for a little bit, thank you, and Councillor Ferguson, yeah.
Smith Falls just finished theirs, I think.
We're all doing it at the
Right.
same time, yeah.
So I'm getting the feeling we're probably gonna refer this, or are we wanting to create some sort of motion? Sorry, Mayor Lowry?
My advice to council is to not to refer it. It's not going to be an easier discussion later, unless you're going to refer this to like a different group of people who would be making the decision. It is never easy to sit and talk about your own remuneration. We're having this conversation at a point where I don't think any of us have decided, you know, if we're running again, if we're not running again, whatnot. So I don't think the decisions are going to get easier later. The one thing I wanted to say, having listened to the conversation, is like I totally appreciate, Jean, what you were, Madam Clerk, what you were sharing about like full-time versus not, and you know, what can you require of someone who's elected? It's really up to the people to determine that. But I was thinking about something, and I can't remember who it was that did it. I heard it through the Healthy Democracy business with AMO, and they put out, when it was nomination time, they put out the councillor, the deputy mayor, and the mayor positions almost like a job description. You know, here it is. I don't know how they determined hours of work, and here's your compensation. Which is tricky because, you know, how do you determine all of those things? But, you know, you could pull things from the Municipal Act and whatnot. And you certainly could share the rate of pay. But I think the rate of pay also sets expectations. And thinking about some of what Councillor Torrance had said, like if we're wanting to see professionalism, you would see that reflected in the rate of pay in some ways. We're also a pretty small municipality. We're only 16,000 people. So there is that to balance as well. But I think that's something for us to think about. Like, what are the expectations of those who would be putting their names forward? And that's one of the ways that we can help determine that. If the remuneration remains low, that's sort of a message of what we're expecting of the leadership around the table moving forward. So I just offer that as something to think about. The other thing I guess I have two more things I would offer for consideration. The idea of tying our remuneration to the upper tier or some percentage of it or whatever have you, that might make this decision process a little bit easier. Because it is uncomfortable to sit around and talk about remuneration for positions, you know, that we're holding now, may or may not choose to run and may or may not be successful in runs in the future. But, you know, we've done that with the per diems. Thank you. And perhaps that is a less, I don't want to say messy, but less uncomfortable way to have this discussion. And the last thing I was going to say, based on Madam Chair and your thought that perhaps we need to defer or refer, if we're deferring, it doesn't make it easier. We're deferring a decision that's difficult no matter, because, you know, it's kind of like asking in the opposite way, you know, how do turkeys feel about Thanksgiving? Like, it's an uncomfortable conversation to be had. So I think the last perhaps suggestion I'd offer is, if we're uncomfortable making the decision, I don't know if this is a better way to do it or not, but I do know some municipalities who, you know, strike a committee of I don't know who they are, actually would be community folks, I suppose. That might be the other way if it's an uncomfortable thing to do for ourselves. I don't think deferring a decision to later by ourselves is going to, we'll go around the table and be uncomfortable then too. So unless we're referring it to someone else, I think we probably need to
Yep.
get on with it in some kind of way, unless there's other information that we're hoping the clerk would gather up for us. Or
That's-
wait to not be the first out of the gate. That might be the other thing, but.
That's fair. I think what I was getting from the group is a lot of different first choices. And so let's just do the work of narrowing that down. Look, what I would like to say is mayor salaries, I think, used to be more of a stipend because it was a retired gentleman who had the time to do it and they were sort of being compensated that way. If we want to be in the modern world where working people, professionals are coming in to do this job, then we have to pay for it accordingly. And I think the mayor sort of alluded to, if we're looking for the best staff, we should also be looking for the best council. I certainly would not, even if I thought I could run for mayor, would not run for mayor at $35,000. It's just not proper compensation. Having said that, where do we want to go with this? Councillor Torrance?
I'm also going to throw another wrench into this because if I feel honestly that my job at council is easier in this term because Krista carries so much of the load, you know? So I don't know that I think that councillors need to go up a whole lot, you know, like it's not, you know, like so I would prefer, because I know my job is easier, that the mayor, whose job is much harder, goes up, you know? And so like what balance do we put on, like when the, you know, when we started to think about what the ratio was between mayor and deputy mayor and councillor, what was the original thinking, you know, like was it double, what, you know, like what was it? But what is currently the actual workload for councillors versus deputy mayor versus mayor? And so that's information that I'm not seeing here, Jean, you know, that I would like to consider. And so I'm really not ready to make a decision. I know that it you know, even if this exact same report came back, after hearing everybody's thoughts around the table, I would have a little bit more room for digestion, I guess.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying completely. I look at this more in the long term and taking the people out of the position. So you're absolutely right. We're very fortunate to have the mayor that we have. But we can't make decisions based on our current experience because it's only going to last another 10 months. Maybe, maybe not. So did you want to make a motion or do we want to continue talking? Okay, Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, I think we're right. We're in a quagmire here. We really don't want to talk about our salaries, and we have to take people out. I know, Councillor Torrance, you said your job is lighter. Ramsey, I think before I had come on, had 3 representatives. Now it has 2. My job is not light, and I often put in a 40-hour week just dealing with council business. Now it's my decision to perhaps get involved maybe more than I should or need to, but I feel that that's what I need to do to represent my ward and indeed to represent Mississippi Mills. But I really like the idea that was put forward that, you know, having an external committee of I don't know who, but there has to be some people out there who would maybe make us some recommendations because we're so involved in it. It's kind of like I don't know if any of you have ever been involved in, you know, with contract negotiations with unions, and you know, it's a situation where sometimes the perspective you bring in an arbitrator who has a different perspective. So I would certainly be willing to entertain having a third party kind of thing. And I think maybe there's a comment here. So thank you very much. I'll let Jeannie talk.
I agree that the committee would be a good idea. However, we are, what, 4.5 months away from nomination day? So May 1st is when new members of council can put in their nomination papers. That work to get us ready for election is myself and Casey and Aaron. So for us to draft terms of reference for a committee, get that committee terms of reference approved by council, promote and screen applications, and then call all those meetings. We are looking at months and months down the road, and we will be bringing this report back in the middle of your election. So I just want to
Right.
flag that to you guys.
Yeah, it
That the
does.
likelihood of this coming back if we do a committee before May 1st is 0%.
It does take a long time, anytime you assign a committee or a working group.
Mhm.
Perhaps the county is our working group that we use.
That's something, I mean, the committee could work for maybe the next time we do this, or maybe we look at something as a midterm review of remuneration, and then we have a committee do it then. I think getting it done before election, by May 1st it's almost impossible if we do a committee.
Yeah, Councillor Torrance?
Well,
Oh.
I would put a motion forward if you're ready for one, Madam Chair, that would tie our Mississippi Mills remuneration, county's remuneration policies. I think that just makes it easier all the way around. And it sounds like they're pretty, yeah.
There is no deputy reeve. So we would have
Yeah.
to find a percentage of either the reeve's salary or the county councilor's salary. to-
With
Yeah,
that, with
Yes, go ahead.
I guess that would be with the deputy mayor, whatever percentage it is right now, using those similar percentages.
So would it be possible to make a motion tonight for the majority coming back with a percentage for the deputy mayor?
I mean, I could calculate the percentage that is between counselor's remuneration and the deputy mayor, and then apply that to the county councilors to get the deputy mayor's rates.
I think we have Mayor Lowry and then Councillor Suter. And then Councillor First.
I feel like there's maybe some momentum here, so I don't want to get that off the track, but perhaps I throw this out very gently because I don't want to upset the apple cart if we're going in a direction, but I don't ever remember reviewing remuneration at the county, and I don't know, Deputy Mayor, if you recall, we've both been there almost 2 full terms. I don't remember ever reviewing it there, which is kind of bananas. And I wonder if it might be helpful if we, like, I don't want to undo what's happening here, but maybe there's information that we can also gather. I'm not sure if it'd be the clerks or if it'd be HR, or to make some comments on how decisions are made up there, because I don't ever remember reviewing it in 2 terms.
2 terms ago.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay, you got a better memory than me.
Yeah.
All right, disregard my comments. The deputy mayor has a better memory than I do.
Councillor Suter?
Well, I think it's time to remind my colleagues that we were elected to make decisions.
I think we're trying
And-
really hard.
And this one is in many parts. Most of the parts of this decision are quite easy. The difficult one is trying to balance our collective knowledge that, based both on research and experience, that the mayor's remuneration is woefully low. For the rest of us, we're within the ballpark of everyone else. So we're really talking about what do we want in getting in attracting a mayor? And what kind of salary will be acceptable to the votership? Because that's partly what is the rein on the amount for the mayor. What will be acceptable? Having said all this, in 3 years, I have had conversations with many people who have brought up the subject, who very firmly agree that the current salary for the current mayor is way too low, and that the position and its remuneration should be seriously looked at and hiked. So maybe if we just worry first about what would be a fair and acceptable raise for the mayor, we could get a little further faster.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, I forgot to mention Jeannie's review here, and I think she's done a fabulous job, but there's a lot of work committed to that. The second part of it that we haven't talked about is the mayor, and I know where Crystal stands, I know the work she's done, but we're not talking about that. But you also look at what the opportunities are for extra work, extra pay. So you have your county, significant, as we know. We have the extras. We have MRPC. We have ORPC. We have MVCA. So if you added all of those opportunities into the positions that we're talking about, there are significant monies there as well. And not necessarily a lot of extra time, because these are monthly meetings as opposed to council meetings, which are every 2 weeks. So I think there's a significant difference there. And I think that should be taken into consideration.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Thank you.
And I would certainly put a motion forward to support what I've proposed there. And I know it's not the 3 I used, but it's Smith Falls. And if you look at what Smith Falls just approved, it's about the same amount as the mayor's salary that we're proposing here, or I would propose here.
So just to remind everybody, Councillor Ferguson's numbers were approximately 50,000, approximately 30.5, and approximately 24.5.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's a 25% increase for the mayor's salary. 11 for the deputy mayor and 15 for councillors.
Jean, did you want to respond to that?
It's essentially, if you go to table 3, it's the 95th percentile. It's the 95th percentile. That's the salary essentially range for the 3 positions.
Okay, thank you. So I think we've heard from almost everybody. And does somebody have a motion they'd like to put forward? Councillor Torrance?
Before we put this motion forward, because I'd already moved the first motion, which didn't get seconded, and neither is this one, could we see what the difference is between what Councillor Ferguson is proposing versus what I was proposing with the county one? I don't know what that is, Jean.
So the county, currently the warden is at 59,441. So it's about $9,600 difference there for the mayor's position. And members of county council receive 24,767. So it's a $100 difference there. I did some math on my calculator. It's the deputy mayor is sitting at approximately 25% more than the member of council. So it would be about the 30,000 for the deputy mayor as well. The main difference at the county is the head of council is about $10,000 more. The other 2 numbers are pretty much equal. I will say that's the 2023 rates at Lanark County, though. They will be increased, I would imagine, for the new term of county council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Torrance, if I can
Yeah.
guess at what you were thinking, were you thinking going somewhere in the middle?
Yeah.
Which would be, sorry, 44, which would be about 48,000? 49,000?
49 is what.
Sorry, I was talking about what Councillor Ferguson had recommended.
Councillor Ferguson recommended 49 for the mayor, I believe. So going between the two would put us more at like a 54, 55.
Sorry, I was looking at a different number. Does that help? Does anybody have a motion they'd like to put forward? Councillor Ferguson, would you like to? Okay, so your motion would be that the mayor shall receive remuneration in the form of an annual salary commencing November 15, 2026 of 49,964.
964. Yes.
There's-
The deputy mayor,
And let's do them all at the same time. The deputy mayor of 30,508
508, correct,
and councillors at 24,612.
correct.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Holmes? Any discussion? Councillor Torrance?
Well, I would, I guess I would see a decrease in councillor's salary to be able to afford in a mayor's salary. So that would be what my preference would be.
Councillor Suter, did you have something?
Well, I was about to say that I would support Councillor Ferguson's motion. But then I listened to Councillor Torrance, and I too would be willing to have the councillors drop $1,000 from that amount in order to accommodate an extra $5,000 for the mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes.
I think we have to remember that we are talking about the mayor in the future and also the councillors in the future. And I have no objections to dropping $1,000 from the councillors, but I do have an objection to playing that game of we'll give that money to the mayor, you know, like I think I would have no problem though with dropping the council.
Any other comments?
Do you think this has just taken us away on another huge circular tangent? That's, I remember geometry, that's a bit of an oxymoron. Tangents only go in one direction.
Could I just ask that maybe we clarify what you're voting on? I know that we're having some questions what the vote is amongst ourselves here.
Thanks for the motion. Back to the drawing table. Is there another motion somebody would like to put out? If not, and we're stalled,
Can we use the original motion?
You can, there are no motions on the floor. You can do whatever you would like.
That's the motion as written in this report. Is that what you're referring to, Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
You can, for sure.
Can I move that?
You can.
Okay.
So motion one, I'm not going to read the whole thing again, but it's mayor at 60,689.71, deputy mayor at 30,425.67, and councillors at 24,287.17. Is that okay for the clerks? Okay. So do we have a seconder for deputy mayor's motion?
Nope.
Councillor Suter. Yep, thank you. Councillor Suter seconds. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? And all opposed? Okay, that passes with 4-2, 4-3. All right, the motion passes. Thank you, everybody. That's always tough.
That was quick.
Pardon me. And we'll move on to what might be even more difficult is the training. Yeah.
I might recommend that based on the comments around the table, that for the training, it go to option 2
Okay.
of my staff report, which states that council amend the section 11.9.1 that amends the operating budget to be in line with the increases that staff receive for the operating budget. It's on 2 pages there, Casey, yeah. That would take away the $9,000 per member of council and tie the operating increase to 2.5%. Or to whatever we increase it annually.
So the recommended motion is that council amend section 1191 to the following coming into effect November 15, 2026. The mayor, deputy mayor, and members of council may attend professional development events within the approved annual operating budget, which shall be increased annually at the same rate that the staff operating budget for professional development is increased. Anybody want to make that motion? Councillor Ferguson and second by Councillor Holmes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you, Jean. Okay, where are we? Thanks, everybody. That was tough. We're back to H, notice of motion. There are none. Our quarterly reports tonight were childcare and the clerk's department. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to send them an email or give them a call. Information items. No correspondence, mayor's report.
So I have a couple things that I want to update council on. The first is actually from last month. I went to the Board of Health meeting in Kingston with the Southeast Health Unit. There were a number of delegations. I had written a letter, which I can't recall if I have circulated to council or not. We should really put it on an agenda so it's publicly available. It's on the Southeast Health Unit website, but it's not on ours. And anyway, indicated the concerns that we have over the potential closure of the Elmont Health Unit and not knowing and not understanding the service delivery intentions with this change in service. There were a number of very thoughtful delegations at that meeting. There was also a presentation on the rural service delivery strategy that has been in place in the Kingston Health Unit, which is one of the ones that we've merged with. It was a bit of a challenging meeting because you could see around the table there was a direction that the board seemed to be fairly united in how they were wanting to move forward. And there certainly was a pretty strong message from the delegations that were provided. There was one from Karina Smith-Gacky, who's the warden of Leeds and Grenville, The Prince Edward Family Health Team also presented. There was a very thoughtful presentation from Prince Edward County Councillor Kate McNaughton as well as the president and CEO of the Kemptville District Hospital. So quite a lot of different kinds of voices who were participating. My letter was acknowledged, and I think it's important that we stay connected to what's going on with this item. We certainly have very strong leadership from our Lanark County representative, who is the warden, Richard Kidd. But as I said, there was a very much unanimous message, I guess I could say, through the questions I was hearing, through the discussion I was hearing from the board. So I will be attending, if I'm able to, their subsequent meeting, which is end of January. I think it's on the 28th. Well, there'll be further information about the strategy and what is happening with those health units that appear to be not having their lease continued. That's one thing that I'm not clear on, if the leases have already been let expire or canceled. But nonetheless, there certainly is, as I say, very strong and united conversation around the table. But I will make sure that you all see the letter. I apologize that I didn't get that around to everybody before Christmas. The other thing, and I really don't have a whole lot of information to say other than had some conversations with both the warden and staff at the county about childcare. We did have a delegation scheduled for tomorrow at the county, and we have withdrawn that delegation. And I anticipate that further discussions will be deferred until into the spring. I don't have a whole lot of information other than there's a realization that there's more information to have, more conversations to be had. So I think that's a good thing. And it certainly was very productive to chat with the warden and with staff. I think we all realize like there's not something time sensitive here. We can take the time it takes to make sure we all have the same information and work towards the best solution. So if you're planning to go to the county, please do if you like, but there will not be a conversation about childcare. And then the last thing I wanted to share, if you recall when we had the Legion here at the meeting just before Remembrance Day, there was a little bit of a discussion with Mike Wiggins about how can we as a community be welcoming and friendly to the military families who move into the community, and they may be here for years and years, or they may only be here for a couple years. And I've had some conversations with Mike Wiggins, but also with our recreation folks and with the Legion. And we're planning like a military family of Mississippi Mills appreciation event. It's likely going to be something pretty simple, like, you know, free skating at the arena in town in Almont, and coming back to the Legion for you know, hot dogs and hot chocolate, something like that. But really the gesture is more of, let's get to know who in the community are serving, or who are the family members of those who are serving. So I think that's good for us to know and good for us to be involved with as the council here. And the Legion seemed quite keen to be involved as well and be able to develop some of those relationships with some families that they for sure know, and then likely families that they don't know. So staff are looking at a Sunday in February, and when things become a little bit more firmed up, we'll make sure that everybody knows. And of course, if you can join, it would be great to have a good showing of council there. And the Legion was right on board as soon as we passed along the ideas. So if you have any ideas about how to make this a really great event, happy to chat, or Susan and Calvin are the ones that are leading on this one. And that would be my report.
Thank you. I think with the military, you're on the right track, taking them to the Legion because they're very familiar with the Legions. And hopefully, fingers crossed, there's one more military family member here in the spring.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. Okay, so I need to go back because I knew I had read letters, but the J1 correspondence, I realized I'm reading off a different script here. So we do have correspondence for you to take a look at. And if anybody has any questions, bring it up with staff or the authors of the reports. County Councilors Report. Deputy Mayor, is there anything over the holidays? Yeah. Yeah, let's just,
Leave it?
yeah, we'll leave it. And if there's, have a look. If there's anything really important, we'll put it on the next agenda. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The MVCA, there's a lot in there, a lot of budget work. Do we have a report?
Well, I can start it and perhaps Councillor Suter can help me out with it. This budget came from our last meeting in December, and certainly, you know, there's a lot of information in there, but essentially, Mississippi Mills, our levy is for the operating is $4,021, and then for capital, it's $470. Essentially, Ottawa, you know, pays the balance, pays the majority of the levy at almost 90%. So, you know, and we all know that we're moving to regions, and we really don't have any more. We had a meeting tomorrow, or yesterday, but the minutes, the draft minutes aren't out yet. But one of the things I would mention from the meeting yesterday was the decision has been made to decrease the hours at the Mill of Kintail Museum from 7 days a week to 5 days a week, and they'll be shut Tuesday and Wednesday. They don't want to shut Monday because of the weekend, the long weekend. So that's what they're trying to do to save money. And the other thing is the Mill of Kintail Working Group. We'll be starting our meetings having our first meeting in January. So I'll keep you posted on that. And I don't know, Councillor Slater might have some more things to add. I'm not sure.
Well, it was a long and varied meeting. Councillor Holmes is quite modest in terms of mentioning the working group that has been established to try to find a way to keep the museum on the site. And I would like to commend her for the many, many hours, effective hours she's been put in. There will be a major full day meeting of that working group in about a week and a half towards the end of January. Also, there was an interesting and upbeat report from a lady named Emma Higgins, who is the MVCA education coordinator, who reviewed the education programs, the development of the summer camps, of a winter program of one-day trips for students during the school year, and the March break camp, and also the introduction of more seniors programming and tours, the guided tours of Conservation Authority, the conservation areas. They had one in the fall of the Mill of Kintail, hope to expand it to the Purdon Bog Orchid site, and perhaps to the one at Fitzroy Harbor in the future. Those programs may have existed in the past, but with COVID, they all went away. And they've just been reintroduced. Last year was the second of the camps, and the feedback has been very, very positive. There are possibilities there. And they see opportunities for growth. And as science camps, they tie right back into Category 1. Having said all this, with what is going on in the transition to regional groups, you may be looking at the last Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority budget.
Good.
They have said the province's deadline for transition was the end of this year, but it may stretch into 2027. Thank
Yeah, it's a mountain of work to change governing authorities, no question. Lanark County Police Services Board.
Yes, the next meeting is scheduled for the 21st of this month.
Thank you very much. Nothing for the library board. We meet tomorrow. So let's have a look at the meeting calendar. Any issues or additions or questions? Councillor Torrance?
The Heritage Committee meeting seems to be a week off on the calendar, so just to confirm. Oh, okay.
Okay, it was changed after the original, okay, after the report was out. Lanark County Traffic Advisory Working Group.
Well, if you've read through the minutes, you'll see how, like, it's kind of interesting because we're talking about adopting a similar type of policy, and so how we actually work through the complaints and what is done about them. But of interest for Mississippi Mills is a little bit of control in the village of Clayton with installation of a radar speed sign and an oversized intersection sign on Bellamy Mills Road as it comes into Clayton. Those are going to be going ahead. There's going to be another investigation about whether or not it actually needs to be made into a three-way stop at that intersection. So I'm not sure that will come back to whether or not that would be it's warranted or not for that to happen. But there has been some other assessments done on that intersection. There was a complaint about speeding on County Road 29 as you're exiting town towards Carleton Place, and the request for the extension of the 60-kilometer zone all the way to Ace Hardware, the co-op. Anyway, and really there was no warrant for any of it for it. You know, as the speeding, everything that they looked at, it was not warranted. So really thinking that there's a little bit more work to be done for buses, because that is a lot of the complaint does come back to buses. And so thinking about stop for school bus signage on County Road 29. And we have been circulated with what some signage looks like in other parts of the county, and their billboards, and reminding, you know, they're very different. So anyway, so that will probably come out of it. You might have seen, not to give away anybody's favorite fishing spot in Lanark County, but they're having some problems with parking on small roads where they lead into popular fishing spots. So they're going to actually reach out to the Fish and Game Club about alternative parking locations. But if you, I was happy to see that the slide deck was also included in this. And so we saw the slides of, there's no way cars can get by people who are parking on the side of the road there. So anyway, that is, I thought it was an interesting, in light of our conversation here about traffic control in Mississippi Mills. I thought it was interesting to be able to see what this working group, how it works through it. And our next meeting, I think, is in March.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Ferguson?
Yes, thank you. In discussion with that, have we folded the tent in reference to speed cameras, do you think, or is that's still going to be more discussion? That certainly some of the cities like Ottawa have certainly issued concerns about it, obviously, and I don't know what your committee.
It has been completely folded in Lanark County. We had, our working group had asked the county council support a motion that would ask for some further discussion like the city of Ottawa is doing. And that was not agreed to at county council. So it's completely off the table now. It's done. We hadn't started yet, like we'd started the investigation, but thank goodness we hadn't invested any money into it. Or, we also don't have the money to be able to think about to slow traffic down. And you'll see that or maybe you've heard some of the ads on the radio, there definitely is, there is notice going out for public education about slowing down, but there's no money on the other side to be able to pay for it. But anyway, it's off the books completely. I don't think we'll ever talk about it again. So.
All right, thank you. Is there anything else for Councillor Torrance? Seeing not, there's no new business, so we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good job, Vicky. Thanks, Vicky.